at all?
It's meant.
So, thank you. My name is Oliver Luck. I am the Commissioner and CEO of the XFL. And what I thought I would do is take about 15 minutes or so, just walk you through our league and Vince McMahon, who's our owner, and why, and a number of the things that we're up to right now. We're in the middle of our launch. Obviously, we end up starting, or we'll be starting our games just in about 25 days. We're obviously very excited about what we're doing. Let me kind of start at the very beginning, if I could. At the beginning of our story really starts with Vince McMahon, who's our founder and our visionary. If Vince were standing here, and if you asked him, hey Vince, why are you launching the XFL or relaunching the XFL? Many of you may remember the XFL 2001. In fact, with the LA Extreme as the champion of that league. But Vince would say that he is doing this for the love of football. He's a very successful man who's built a remarkably successful company, WWE, publicly traded. But I think if you took away a lot of the layers of Vince, who's known as a wrestling guy, there's somewhere inside of him is a real love for the game of football. He recognizes how important the game is to American life, how important it is to our sort of social fabric. And I think he's really been remarkably successful in kind of helping us pull all of this together. About a year and a half ago, he reached out to me and asked me about my interest in getting involved as the commissioner and CEO. And as someone who played the game, as someone who has been an administrator at various levels, both working for the NFL as well as for the NCAA, as someone who coached a little bit in terms of my kids growing up, and I was able to get at least one of my sons playing professional football for a number of years. I love the game, and the opportunity to work with a guy like Vince, who I think is a genius, quite honestly, but the opportunity to work with a guy like Vince and build the league up and kind of put our collective fingerprints all over it was really remarkable. So we got started really with Vince saying to me, Oliver, think about how we can make the game better. Think about how we can make the game of professional football better. And we started by going to our fans, right? Going to fans of professional football and saying, tell us what you like, tell us what you would change if you could. If you could be king for a day, what kind of changes, what sort of innovations might you make in professional football? And what came back from these fans through focus groups and a bunch of market research over a period of months, what came back was probably to be expected, and the answer was this. We love professional football. The NFL is a great league. It's probably at an all-time high. I think we're watching peak football. But if we were to make some changes, Mr. Luck, XFL, we would do a couple of things. One, there's a little bit too much downtime, a little bit too much idle time in the game. They last too long. Last night's college football championship game seemed like it went on for about 4.5, 5 hours. Great game, yeah. Two great quarterbacks, great players, but really dragged on. So people, don't have as much time.
Just noticed. Yeah, something.
Mic check. No, that's good, right?
Okay, thank you. So they came back and said, we love the game of football, but we can pick up the pace a little bit. We can get those games done in 3 hours, almost like back in the 1970s and 80s with the old American Football League, when the game really didn't go past 3 hours. So we spent a lot of time taking that information from our fans, talking to so-called football experts. I had guys like Jim Caldwell, former Super Bowl coach, or John Fox, another Super Bowl coach, Doug Flutie, television experts, health and safety folks, and we looked at all of the rules. And we said, how can we innovate? How can we tweak some rules to make the best game we possibly can, knowing that the game's pretty good already? How can we take a great game and make it just a little bit better? So we spent a lot of time doing that. We had time because of the support that Vince was giving us, and I'll walk through some of those rule changes in a minute. But everything that we did had the underlying rationale of, will this allow, in the XFL, our teams to play up-tempo, fast-paced football? Same number of plays as you might get in the NFL, same action, same excitement, but compressed into a 3-hour time block. And we figured out how to do that. And we did, I think, and we tested it, more importantly. So some of the rule changes that we are talking about, I'll give you my favorite personally, which is the option that you as a head coach would have after you've scored a touchdown. So you scored a touchdown, it's worth 6 points, that's traditional, we're all familiar with that. And And then you have a 1-point option, a 2-point option, and a 3-point option. You theoretically can have a 9-point touchdown. They're all plays from scrimmage. There's no kicks, right, in the extra. All plays from scrimmage. And we think that makes sense because there's additional strategy in the game. There's additional strategy to decide, well, do I go for 1, do I go for 2, do I go for 3? For example, one of our head coaches, and I'll walk through our head coaches in the stadiums in a second, but one of our head coaches said, you know, now that I'm thinking about this, if we score in a defensive touchdown, a pick six, or a scoop and score where there's an automatic, very quick momentum shift, I might go for 3 and take advantage of that momentum shift. Maybe that's a good strategy, maybe it's not. We love to second guess football coaches. That's what we as a nation do on Monday, right? We're the great Monday morning quarterbacks. So I think of all the rule changes, this is the one that really has me most excited because it's all about strategy. We have another rule change that we may not see all that much of, but I think is kind of interesting, and it's a double forward pass. So we all know what the double pass is, right? The trick play when a quarterback throws a lateral to a receiver, and that receiver then chunks it down the field, kind of tricks the defense. It's usually a scoring play. It's a big play. In fact, Edelman scored, or had I think 3 touchdown passes this year with the Patriots on trick plays like that. But this is what's happening to that play with most quarterbacks being in the shotgun. They're already 5 or 6 yards deep, and it's very difficult to throw a lateral because the guy has to be 7 or 8 yards deep, and that's what it gives the play away. So we said, why not redefine what a forward pass is? And let's say that a forward pass, as long as it doesn't cross the line of scrimmage, can be thrown a second time. We think that'll be fun. You get all these bubble screens, we see it in the pro game, you see it in the college game. We think that it'll be fun, and that it'll be a play that's going to be called more often because we're taking the risk out of it. If that forward pass behind the line of scrimmage is incomplete, it's just an incomplete pass, big deal. It's not a live ball like a lateral would be. So you take the risk out of that, make it a little bit easier to throw out of the shotgun. We think that will actually be a positive, and we'll see that play more often than we would normally. It'll be kind of a fun play because it's always almost always a scoring play. As we went through all of these things, it's important to note that we also talked about health and safety of players. Right, football certainly is a rough game. I played for a number of years and really appreciate how rough and violent a game it can be. And as we talked about these rule changes, we wanted to make sure that at a minimum we weren't going in the wrong direction in terms of health and safety, particularly brain health and safety. 20 years ago, I'm sure when Vince launched the XFL back in 2001, people weren't talking about concussions certainly as much as they are now. But I'll give you an example of a rule that we have that's a little bit different. Everybody here will be familiar with it because it's the college football rule, but it also has a very positive effect on health and safety. It's the 1 foot in bounds catch rule. We all know it from college. It happens every Saturday thousands of times. It's a safer play than the 2 foot in bounds rule. And you are dragging 2 feet in bounds, you can't protect yourself as a player, right? You have 1 foot in bounds and 1 foot that you can put down, you're gonna be safer. Every receiver we've talked to, and we talked to dozens of them, including guys now in our league, love that rule because they think it's a little bit safer, and we want to try to make sure that what we do is improving in some form or fashion, safety of players. We have a different kickoff. Kickoff is the most single dangerous play in football. That's, I think, established by all the statistics. We have a different kickoff. Can we bring that up and show it to you? It's almost easier to explain. So what we do with our kickoff is we line up.
This is the XFL.
So there's a whole series, by the way, of the rule changes that have the associated graphics, which we'd be happy to share with you. But taking the sprint, taking that 40-yard sprint that kickoff cover players have to do, taking that out of the equation, we believe will lessen the impact. You have these guys lined up only 5 yards apart, and it becomes much more like a play from scrimmage. And we think that's going to be safe for all the medical officials, athletic trainers, all the folks we talked to, including Dr. Julian Bales, who's a neurologist. He's our chairman of our medical advisory board, the Steelers team doctor. They love this rule because they think it'll actually make it safer for the kickoff. Fans told us they miss kickoff returns, right? fans said to us, they're pretty, these folks are fairly intelligent, they said, we don't miss the kickoff, we miss the kickoff return. That's the fun part of the kickoff. And in a sense, because most NFL kickers easily can kick the ball out of the end zone, and the number of returns in the NFL has dropped significantly. And in college, of course, there's a fair catch rule, so you're not seeing as many kickoff returns there as well. So we've got a series of rule changes that we think make sense. We think there's an underlying rationale that makes sense as well. And we think these will help us play this up-tempo, fast-paced game. Perhaps the one rule change that we've made it will be the most consequential, and that is the 25-second play clock. So in the National Football League, there's a 40-second play clock. You run a sweep, ball goes out of bounds, they spot the ball, and it's a 40 seconds before the next play. Ours is a 25-second play clock. That's significantly shorter, obviously. We can all do the math. And we think that's going to be the most important change we have, because that affects the timing of every play. So what we're aiming for, what our teams are practicing, on a daily basis, now that they have opened up their training camps a week and a half ago, is really this up-tempo, fast-paced game. Think about, instead of watching a 2-minute exercise for a full 60 minutes, we think that conditioning, good old-fashioned physical conditioning, may become a little bit more important in our game, particularly for linemen, because they're going to have to move, and they don't have as much time between plays to catch the breath. And sport should be, to a certain degree, about conditioning. So we've got a whole series of innovations that we're very excited about. Our teams are down in Houston practicing them. And we took all these innovations, right? After we discussed them from all possible angles, we took all these innovations and we tested them. Again, Vince has given us time. We're going through this back in the fall of 2018 and the spring of this past year. We tested all of these rule changes with junior colleges. We basically borrowed junior college football teams to test kickoffs and punts and the timing of all these things. And we worked with a number of what I would call semi-pro leagues, including out here in California, and tested them as well, because we wanted to make sure that there were no unintended consequences, and that what we thought looked good on the chalkboard actually looked good for players who were playing. And one of the things we learned is that we had to be really selective in the number of rule changes we really wanted to introduce, because it takes a while for players to learn new rules, certainly rules that are different from what they're used to. This happens every year in the National Football League preseason week 1, right? There's a defensive back straight out of college, and he forgets he's in the NFL for a moment and doesn't touch the guy when he goes down, right? And in the NFL, you have to touch him when he's down. In college, if they trip, fall down, touch their knee, they're down by contact. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't have situations where there were players who said, my gosh, I'm a punt returner, I forget which league I'm in, can I do a fair catch or no, etc. So we had to be pretty selective and not overburdening our players, and our coaches for that matter, because we're all, to a certain degree, creatures of habit. So our teams are all down in Houston, Texas. This is sort of unusual for football to have what I would call a collective, centralized training camp. And we did it really for one reason, which is, consider this, right? All of these teams started off from scratch with no players. They had a coach, head coach, coaching staff, they had their various personnel folks, they had athletic trainers, and video people, and equipment managers and all that, but no players. So we stocked up each roster with a draft. We had one in October and a second draft in November. And we decided that it made sense during training camp, 3 weeks, full equipment, to have all these teams practicing against each other every second or third day. Because the only way to make sure that we had a level of parity was to see the comparative strengths and weaknesses. And if you're only practicing against yourself, quite honestly, you never really get to that point, because you begin to take things for granted. The left cornerback in your team's a little bit weak on an outcut, you just throw outcuts all day long. That doesn't really help you become a better team. So we brought all of our players, all 560, into Houston. They all have their respective training setups at various colleges or high school stadiums down in Texas. Of course, as you guys know, Texas takes its high school football seriously, so the high school facilities there are really phenomenal. Players are kind of blown away that have never been exposed to that. And they're training. Tomorrow we've got 4 scrimmages, Team A versus Team B, Team C versus Team D, etc. every 2 or 3 days. And I've been fairly pleasantly surprised with what I've seen from our players. Guys are excited. We made a sort of special effort to go out and identify the best possible quarterbacks we could in today's world of football. I think most of you would probably agree that the quality of your quarterback really determines very often the quality of the play of your team. So we went out and signed guys with significant NFL experience. Landry Jones, longtime backup to Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh, is in Dallas playing for Bob Stoops, his old college coach. Josh Johnson is here in LA. He started games last year in the NFL and won as a starting quarterback. He's been around, gosh, how many, 5-6 teams? A really solid player. Matt McCloin will be more than likely will be our starting quarterback in New York. Former Penn Stater, played for the Raiders for a number of years. So we really went out to identify the best possible quarterbacks we could, because we realized how important that is. So we've got, I think, a good crop of players. We think the best 560, that's 8 times 70, best 560 players that are not under contract in the National Football League. It's pretty simple, and they're excited. Vince is not interested in building any kind of a league that just supplies talent to the National Football League. We want to build our own self-sustainable, if you will, league with our own brand identity. But clearly, a lot of players, and we're very upfront about this, a lot of players like our league because it's a chance for them to have a great platform, to get film, to get tape, and to potentially recommend themselves, to continue to play professional football. So the sort of excitement that these guys have about being there is really awesome. You mentioned the your first ball game, and the broadcast partner Fox that's on this. So all of our games are going to be broadcast either on Fox or FS1, their sports cable network, or ABC or ESPN. So they've got great visibility, great coverage. I think you all know we're in Seattle. Jim Zorn's our head coach. We're here obviously in LA at Dignity Health with our very emotional and doing a great job coach that we love, Mr. Moss, former player. We're in Houston and Dallas. Bob Stoops in Dallas. June Jones, our head coach in Houston. In St. Louis, where Jonathan Hayes, longtime NFL player, longtime assistant coach for the Bengals, is there as our head coach. We are in Tampa. Mark Trestman, who won a couple of Grey Cups in Canada, is our head coach down there, former Bears head coach. And we're in D.C., where Pep Hamilton, longtime assistant, both at the NFL and college level, is our coach. And then we're in New York at MetLife. Kevin Gilbride, who is the former offensive coordinator for the Giants when they won a couple of Super Bowls with Eli, he's the head coach up there. So last thing I'll say is the thread that goes through all of that with our head coaches are guys who are offensively creative, right? Even Bob Stoops, who grew up as a defensive guy, he's about as creative an offensive guy as you can get. You look at his record at Oklahoma and what he was doing in terms of playing up-tempo, scoring a bunch of points. Bob is obviously probably the best known of our coaches, but even he, as a defensive guy to his core, has embraced this up-tempo, fast pace. So when I was out looking for head coaches, I really wanted to make sure we had guys who knew how to score points, play fast, score points, and make the league fun. So we're excited about being here in LA. Thank you for coming out. We'd be happy to, I think Heather and I, answer any questions that you all have. I'm sorry for not picking up on my microphone being off earlier.
Yeah, and thank you, Oliver, so much. That was great. One common thread that you see up on the screen here is that everything that the XFL and the LA Wildcats do is for the love of football. Todo lo que hacemos para la XFL y los Angeles Wildcats es por el amor del fútbol americano. So we'll take questions from many of you.
Can you kind of follow up on the kickoff and the 3 seconds? Does the 3 seconds start from when they kick it or when?
The 3 seconds only applies if the ball's not caught.
Oh, okay.
So if the ball is caught by the kick returner, then boom, they can, both sides, both lines can move. If the ball is not caught, there's 3 seconds runoff, and then it's a live ball.
And the follow-up, because of the extra point being 1-2 and the line of scrimmage, no kicks, are you eliminating field goals?
No, we have field goals. So the kicker is a little bit diminished, if if you will, in his stature. But we do have field goals, we do have kickoffs. So I think every one of our teams will be carrying a kicker. They may try to do a combo punter kicker as you often now see in the NFL. Our roster sizes are 52, 45 active players in the 7-man taxi squad or practice squad. And that's just a bit smaller than the NFL. With the 10-game season, you know, we probably won't have as many guys go down, obviously. But I think you'll see a lot of teams with that kicker-punter combination.
You talked about research. Who did you do the research with? Players, fans, or both? And what was the size of the sample?
Yeah, so we ended up getting input from about 6,000 fans. So there's two things. One was just traditional market research, where we worked with a handful of companies that reached out to folks, you know, who were self-identified, passionate football fans, and lots of information that they filled out. And then we did a whole bunch of focus groups, which were really interesting when you get, you know, 12, 15 people in a room for a couple, 3 hours, give pizza and beer, and let them, you know, talk about the game that they love. That for me was an absolute blast. We had a lot of fun. So at the end of the day, it was about 6,000 fans. And again, to summarize, you know, they love the game. You know, they really do. They love the game. But when they think about it, they said, let's get, you know, more meaningful plays. Let's get less idle time. You know, the game does sometimes drag a little bit. I think we can, you know, if we're honest about it, they're true. So, you know, we believe that you know, they sort of were spot on in their analysis.
How inexpensive is it going to be for the fans? Because we know other venues charge horrendous amounts for tickets, and when you have large families in Southern California, is it affordable?
Yeah, I'll take that one. We are really excited about our accessibility because our price point is super affordable. Our tickets start at $20. You can come to all 5 of our home games for $100. A family of 4 is coming to our stadium for under $100. And over half of our stadium is $30 or less per ticket in the lower levels. So you can come sit front row and really enjoy this. And if you buy a 5-game pass to one of our games, you also get a field pass to one of the games. So for $100, you can also come down onto the field. And it's really important that we make sure in Los Angeles that all of our fans and all of our communities can enjoy our football experience.
So what makes the XFL different than some other leagues that tried to take on the NFL, namely the AAF last year, which kind of didn't even do the first season? What about the XFL this time around makes it so big?
I would say one thing, I'll say a couple things, but right off the bat, we're not taking on the NFL. Right? We really view ourselves not as a competitor to the National Football League. The National Football League is a juggernaut. I love the NFL. It's a great league. America loves the NFL. It's our national pastime. We're not taking on the NFL as a competitor. We really believe we can be a complement. We can be a complement in the spring. Football doesn't play anymore. There are a lot of people in this country that woke up this morning and were upset because they said to themselves, oh my gosh, there's only 3 more football games left in the season. I know that because, you know, my friends are like that, right? And, you know, you get the 2 NFL championship games coming up and then the Super Bowl, the season's over. Well, you know, we think there's a time in the spring when we can offer good football and be a complement to the National Football League. So that's number one. I think we have Vince's leadership and his resources. He's committed to this. He also realizes that this is not just a 1-year plan, you know, to really build a franchise and establish brand equity and brand identity. It's going to take a number of years. I can't tell you how proud we are and confident about the power of our broadcast partners. I was just over at Fox this morning on the Colin Cowherd show and doing a town hall for all their employees about the league and the launch. And, you know, I don't think there's ever been a startup sports league, let alone a football league, that's had the power of Fox and Disney behind it, right? That's, in a sense, remarkable. We haven't taken a snap yet. And we've got commitments, you know, for multi-year commitments from Fox and from Disney to broadcast our games, so I think that's good. And the other thing I would say is, I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I do think that we are at peak football right now. I watch a lot of football, like I'm sure many of you, and I'm just amazed at the talent level. And I was amazed watching that game last night with how accurate both those quarterbacks were and just how talented the athletes are. So I think there's peak football right now, and I think that's giving us, you know, great players and great coaches, even though we're not necessarily the peak of the iceberg. And I think that there are just a lot of folks, based on our research, who are, again, self-identified, passionate, diehard fans who want to watch. So as long as we can provide that good, competitive, fun football, up-tempo, fast-paced, score some points, I really think we can build an audience. And that's really what it's about. I just saw a news blurb that came across a couple of days ago of the top 50 rated television shows this past calendar year, 2019. 41 were NFL games. And of the remaining 9, I think 4 or 5 were college football games. So you don't have to be a great analyst to look at that and say, wow, people like to watch football. And if it's good football, people will watch. So I think those are the reasons why we've got a very good chance to make this thing work.
The other thing I'll add to that goes back to the affordability is, in this market in particular, there'll be great football on our field that all the football fans are going to love. But it's also going to be a great family experience. Our game day experience is going to have something for everybody. And in this market, we want to be able to spend our Sunday with our kids, with our families, and our friends. And that's what we're going to allow the Los Angeles community to do at our stadium.
Hey, Oliver.
Some other points you'd like to bring up that we missed because of the audio? At the beginning.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. That would be great. So a couple announcements that I'll repeat is we can't wait to welcome our team back to Los Angeles after training camp completes in Houston at the end of this month. We're having a community block party down at Dignity Health Sports Park on January 25th from 2 to 5 p.m. This is open and free to the public. We're going to have all kinds of activities for our fans, but best of all, our players and coaches will be there on site to meet our fans in person. In addition to that, our first game of the season will be away against the Houston Roughnecks on February 8th, so please tune into Fox to watch that. And our first home game, our home opener is February 16th, 12 p.m. against the Dallas Renegades at Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson.
Oliver, yeah, I do. Oliver,
Yes.
I'm with Fox, actually. I work for the local Fox. I'm wondering about television as such. Football is a TV game, right? So how's Fox going to broadcast XFL? Is it going to look the same as the NFL? Are there innovations in the broadcast that Fox is doing?
So Fox will be producing its games, ABC/ESPN, Disney producing its games. And all those great people that produce all the Fox College and NFL games and the ESPN and ABC NFL college games will be doing the same. So it'll look very much like what you see on Fox for a major college game or for the NFL. A lot of the same commentators, and Kurt Menefee is the lead for Fox. Joe Klatt will be one of the analysts. They got two teams. ESPN has names you'd recognize as well that are doing that, including Diana Rossini, who's got a major role with ESPN on this. So the one thing that will be a little bit different, we're trying to provide as much access to the fan as we possibly can during the broadcast, right? So we'll have our referees mic'd up, and we'll be able to listen in when they have the conversation about, was that a proper flag? Should we pick up? Did you really see that holding? So that's one thing that we're trying to do. So we're really focusing on audio, because we think audio is something that fans can't get enough of. After the play call, of course, but what was the play call by that coach? What did it sound like in the huddle when the quarterback called that play that ended up with a touchdown? We're interviewing players during the game on the sideline. Guy comes off the field, just ran for 40 yards. The sideline reporter, whether it's Diana or whomever, can go ahead and get that interview right off the bat. So we're trying to give fans as much access as we possibly can to those things that they haven't been given access to before, right? Whether it's the NFL or major college. Let's take a glimpse inside the locker room at the pregame talk. Let's see what happens at halftime, what adjustments are made. And we have to be smart. We want our game to have integrity, so we can't give away coaches' secrets. But we want to give as much access as we possibly can.
Okay, anyone else have questions? Oh, go ahead.
The prices are great. It looks like a great family design. But you could tell us more, please, about the fans experience, talking about the families, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are really looking forward to having something for everybody at Dignity Health Sports Park on February 16th. Before the game, we will have a tailgate experience, a fan festival. Our parking is also affordable at $20. Our fan festival will have sort of two sides, one that's a little more rowdy, party-oriented, and the other more family-friendly. I'm a mom of twins who are 4 years old, and so I want to make sure that there's something for my little ones as well, so I can relate to that. In addition, our players will arrive at the stadium and walk through that fan festival. We want to make sure that our players are up close and personal with our fans. Our game is going to be really exciting, a lot of action, which is a testament to the rules that Oliver walked through earlier. But we want to have our fans incorporated as much as possible into the excitement of the game. We'll have moments on the field where they'll be incorporating our fans into the cheers and chants of what we're doing or in the audio and on the Jumbotron. And then after the game, we want an experience for families to come get autographs and photographs on the field and maybe even with some players.
Okay, last question over here.
Some of these rule changes, are they designed more so to differentiate your guys' league from other levels? Or do you look at these as things that, you know, if you show that they work with what you're doing in the long term, maybe we adopt it, follow through NFL, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in that sense, we're sort of an open book. In fact, as we were testing all of these rules with the JUCOs, a number of NFL folks from the NFL football operations group came down to watch, you know, and we all have, you know, very good relationships with NFL folks. If they ever, you know, looked at one of our rules as they watched the season roll out, and thought, oh, that makes some sense, you know, we'd love for it to, you know, to become, you know, more standard, if you will, within football. But we really did them, you know, made these changes to allow us to kind of play the game that we would like to play. I will say, you know, back in the first iteration of the XFL 2001, the Skycam was an XFL / NBC invention, which is now sort of standard fare, you know, for football games. And I think, some of the new press guys and girls might, you know, set me correctly, I think the sideline interview was pioneered in the XFL. Right before that season, you didn't have coaches, you know, right after the halftime or before the halftime, you put sideline interviews. That was sort of, you know, so I think that was an innovation as well that caught on. So, yeah, we're doing this because we think they'll help our game and make our game fun and exciting and up-tempo and fast-paced. And whether others pick them up, great. You know, if they don't, that's fine as well.
Thank you, everybody, so much. Couple announcements. We are going to have UT Bruce